So I want to start this video with, I was looking myself in the mirror these days and then I realized that, wow, I got a lot of weight. And that's really strange because I've always been active. If you take some pictures of me some years ago, when I was in Turkey, for example, I was like really fit. Now I feel like I'm getting weight all the time. I don't feel actually very comfortable with that. I remember like last year when I was in Vietnam, something very funny happened to me. For example, I was walking on the street and I was basically the biggest guy around. And then I got myself thinking, maybe I should learn from the Vietnamese and do what they do to lose weight.
Pack like pop brave, yeah, we making our way. Travel the summer, we on our way.
If you look at the statistics, you realize, there's something interesting in Vietnam. Vietnam has only 2% of obese people. Only 2%. Why people in Vietnam are so slim? So I decided to investigate, and this is what I found. Let's start with the obvious one. The food. Vietnamese cuisine is one of the rarest food cultures where everyday meals are actually pretty balanced. A typical Vietnamese meal is built around rice, vegetables, and herbs. The flavors come from things like fish sauce, lime, chili, broth, not heavy butter, cream, or massive amounts of oil. That's why you can eat rice and not get fat, because the rice is actually the smallest portion. You have big amounts of veggies to make you full, and in all that, absolutely no sugar. It's completely the opposite of the dietary habits in places like India, where I am right now, because you see a heavy reliance on dense carbohydrates and deep fried elements. And the ironic part is that India actually was once the home of bodybuilding. They have even like a very specific fitness instruments like the Gada. It's also called Indian clubs, and they are perfect for mobility and to train your strength, especially if you have joint problems. But let's go back to Vietnam. The Vietnamese culinary is fundamentally different. If it's not rice as your staple food, you are consuming a massive bowl of soup, including bone broth, lean protein, rice noodles, mint, coriander, basil, and perilla leaves. This is one of the most famous dishes in Vietnam and a national pride, the pho. Pho is definitely much more than soup. You are getting full on water, fiber, and volume. There is no heavy cream, there is no cheese, and unlike many places in Southeast Asia and East Asia, bread is widely popular in Vietnam. So now enter banh mi. But it's not the default base of every single meal. Even cooking oils are used sparingly compared to a typical American diner or a mamak stall in Kuala Lumpur, where everything seems to be wok fried in an inch of palm oil. You walk away from a Vietnamese meal feeling satiated, not incapacitated. However, I noticed that in Vietnam, just like Thailand and other countries in Southeast Asia, they use a lot of Ajinomoto, like food enhancer, but well, nothing can be so perfect, right? Now, if you think Vietnamese people are thin because they eat small, bird-sized portions, well, you are dead wrong. I was shocked to see how huge the meals are over there. And I got myself thinking, how can such short people eat a meal like this big? Some of the largest in Southeast Asia. A standard meal there could easily feed 2 or 3 people depending on where you are from. But here's the trick. It goes back to caloric density versus volume. You are eating enough vegetables, broth, and lean meat. You are stuffing yourself, yes, but your body isn't absorbing thousands of empty calories in the process. And this even extends on how people snack over there in Vietnam. In the US or Brazil, for example, snacking is a high-calorie event. It's a bag of chips, massive chocolate bar, or a 500-calorie muffin disguised as a coffee companion. In Thailand, in Malaysia, it can be like a night roti or stop at the nearest 7-Eleven. In Vietnam, snacking is a handful of sunflower seeds. It's sliced green mango or guava dusted with chili salt. Also, food tends to be relatively fresh and made in front of you, but that's something that all countries in Southeast Asia they also follow this trend. There is less ultra-processed stuff sitting on shelf for months. And here's something interesting. If you want to buy chocolate or other sugary snacks in Vietnam, it's one of the most expensive in Southeast Asia. And by January 2027, they are introducing a sugar tax, which will apply an 8% tax on beverages with more than 5 grams of sugar per 100 ml. The only beverages excluded from this tax are dairy products. So as you see, the Vietnamese eat a lot, but they eat smart. So here is something that is very interesting about Vietnam, that despite the country moving on two wheels, yes, sometimes we even think like, wow, Vietnam is made for motorcycles instead of people, because there are so many. Despite all this, you can imagine like, the people don't move that much, or they're kind of lazy when in relation to physical activity. But that's when you're wrong. The Vietnamese, they move a lot and they're very active. The Vietnamese don't skip exercises during their day. If you wake up at 5 a.m., I mean, why would you? Yes, because you're probably on holidays. But if you wake up at 5 a.m. and you go to any city, regardless if it's like a big city like Ho Chi Minh or maybe Hanoi or even a village, you can see people like working out with Tai Chi exercises or just, like jogging and riding a bicycle. The idea is to get moving. And also, the Vietnamese, they are very hardworking. They have this hardworking culture. They are not afraid of stairs, they're not afraid of walking long distances, and they are not afraid of hard work. Also, you have a lot of parks and they have a lot of free public gyms. You can just, go to the park and see you have like bars or even like weights sometimes. So it's very interesting how the government and how people are aware about the benefits of physical activity in the health. Speaking about how society views physical activity, in Vietnam, being lazy or being, like sitting on a couch all the time is not very well seen. I think I'm gonna dive into some dangerous waters here. I don't agree how things goes in the United States or Europe or my country that being obese is something beautiful. You have all this movement of body positivity. This is a public health concern. This is a public health issue. It's not something to brag about. And in Vietnam, there isn't anything like this. Now, in many other Asian countries, to be honest, but in Vietnam more specifically because they kind of have not that many filters that as a Thai person would have. They say normally, for example, like, you got weight, huh? Wow, I think you're getting very fat. Your grandmother, like in Vietnam, your neighbor, or even the lady that sells you tea or coffee, they're gonna comment about your weight. Yes, for many Westerners, for many people coming from many countries in the West, this can be very offensive because like, wow, who the hell are you to talk about my weight or mind your effing business? But this is something that is from the very society. They don't do this intentionally, like in a bad way. It's how society works. Vietnam and in Asia, people have this collective mindset. They care about each other, they treat each other very well. In the West, specifically in Northern European countries like UK or Germany, Scandinavia, people are more individualistic. It's all about me, and myself, yes? In the Western culture is also like this in general. But in Asia, it's kind of more the collective. Us is more important than me. You have this social pressure, but in very subtle ways. For example, if you are in Vietnam, you notice that smaller sizes of clothes, they can be cheaper than bigger size of clothes. And that's why many foreigners, they go to Vietnam because normally we are taller, yes? Not only fatter, but taller. We struggle and we pay always more expensive because it is more expensive in general to buy bigger clothes over there. So it means that indirectly you are rewarded for being slim and punished for being fatter. And of course, I'm not gonna be like hypocrite. There is also this, like these beauty standards in Asia that you need to be slim, skinny. So as the country rapidly develops, the economic realities are shifting. Fast food chains are aggressively moving in. Processed convenience foods are filling up the shelves in convenience stores. Sugary bubble teas are becoming a daily staple for the younger generation. In fact, if you look at recent data, the rate of childhood obesity in urban centers, it's actually spiking at an alarming rate. Yes, the 2% reality is under threat. Also, there are two reasons for that. One of them is that disposable income increases. Well, you get more money, yes, so now we can spend more money in maybe better food or maybe more fancy food, yes? And also there is this shared mindset that, wow, this is from the United States. Wow, it's expensive, huh? Like KFC is so expensive or McDonald's. it's American or this is European. Wow, that's so amazing. So if I buy this, technically I am richer, or I can afford that. So it's also like a social status. I ate in much better fried chicken places in Thailand and in Vietnam. And it's much, maybe like 3 times cheaper or 10 times cheaper than KFC. But like KFC, it's like $10 a bucket. So it's not everyone can pay $10 for a bucket in Southeast Asia. So also there is this thing of showing off or flexing on social media. The older generation is still the leanest because they grew up on scarcity, whole foods, and that strict physical culture. The younger generation is growing up on delivery apps and screen time. And I hope I don't see people as big as in the United States in Vietnam the next time that I go there. In Vietnam, people are not slim because they crack some super secret code on how to be slim or fit. Actually, they just follow simple rules. One of them is you are what you eat. And you need to spend more calories than you consume them. You need to do some physical activity. If you've been to Vietnam, for example, did you feel like me? Did you feel like super fat compared to other people around you? Do you think Vietnam is going to be a fatter nation in the future? Let me know in the comments below. They always bring up some interesting discussion, and I read and I reply to all of them. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next video. Happy trails.
Pack like Park Brave, yeah, we making our way. Travel the summer.